Let's break down the best Marvel Rivals settings today, including some new changes such as raw input on mouse and things like aim sensitivity curve and dead zone response time on controller. I'll also break down the best performance settings in the display tab so that your game runs smoother, the best crosshairs and reticles for each hero, as well as the best audio settings so you can hear everything properly, including some special settings in combat mix, as well as some hero-specific settings for different characters. Let's first start with your display settings, and this is going to help you get a lot of performance. Now, you may have already seen most of the in-game settings that I'm about to explain in a second, but today's sponsor may get you even more performance that you may not otherwise have had. Just go click the link in the description, and you'll be able to get ExitLag. You can use the FPS boost feature in ExitLag to basically fine-tune a bunch of Windows system settings that are going to boost your frame rate. Not only that, but ExitLag's best feature allows you to reduce your ping. The way it does is you find the game you like, you click on it, and then it will find the most optimal route between your internet and the game server, avoiding bad traffic routing. Let's test it on my own connection. Without ExitLag, we get about 35 ping. With it turned on, that goes to 20 to 25. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of internet service providers are really bad at routing your traffic when it comes to connecting you to game servers. I've personally had that experience both in the UK and abroad when playing, so using ExitLag can really help reduce ping, especially if your ISP is particularly troublesome with playing online games. As part of ExitLag's birthday, you can get a 12-month plan for half price and only pay 6 months. This includes the solo, duo, and squad plan. You can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen now to get access to all of ExitLag's great features. Alright, let's jump into the actual in-game settings now. First up, display mode if you're on PC. Now, most games, putting it in full screen will give you better performance. However, in this particular game, especially if you're running a game or another window in the background, I find borderless windowed to give me better frames. You can even see it here. We're getting over 200 most of the time, but when I turn this on, it drops. So for me, borderless window seems to work better. You can try this yourself, and it's very easy for you to tell if it's better or not. It may be different in your case. Every machine is different. However, the next settings are mainly recommended for getting the most frame rate possible in Marvel Rivals. Starting with anti-aliasing. NVIDIA DLSS is the best performance-based anti-aliasing, to be honest, if you've got an NVIDIA card. Otherwise, Epic TSR can be pretty good, and you can put that on ultra performance and low anti-aliasing. But for NVIDIA, put it on ultra performance. Either setting you go for, make sure to put super resolution sharpening to 0. Having this higher is definitely going to impact your frame rate. And personally, I don't think the game looks that bad on these settings. Now, on top of that, frame generation, you want that off. It's going to add input delay. Reflex low latency, however, is a good mode to have on. That can reduce input delay. VSync, you want that off. That can add input delay. For actual graphic settings, global illumination off, or if you don't like the look, go for SSGI. Lumen will hit your frame rates massively. Reflection quality off, or if you feel like the game looks like too much like a potato, screen space reflections. Once again, Lumen will hit your frame rate massively. Model detail, it's down to personal preference. This isn't going to affect your frame rate too much, so you could go to ultra if you want. As you see, my frame rates are basically fluctuating around the same level. So if you want slightly crisper model detail, that is not going to affect your quality much. But you can always put it on performance to squeeze extra frames out of your PC. Post-processing, definitely put that to low. This is just extra visual effects that you aren't going to need anyway. Shadow detail, low. Texture detail, low. Effects and foliage, low. If you feel like the game doesn't look that great, a couple of things you can turn up without hitting your frames too hard are texture detail, you can put that on medium, and effects detail on medium, or you can mess around with these two settings here. But if you really want the best, go for low and off and performance. Now we move on to audio settings. Now, these are the best settings that I've found to make sure that I hear everything I need. Firstly, the master volume is going to depend on your own system audio. For example, my Marvel Rivals audio is really loud, and I don't like that, so I've turned this down to 25. But this is basically what you want to adjust once you've adjusted everything else. And it's maybe higher for you. Sound effects volume, I want this 100. This is every single sound in the game, shooting, ambience, everything. Lobby ambience audio doesn't really matter. That's just on the main menu. Music volume, I like to put this as low as possible because I want to be able to hear the other sounds of the match. Lobby music volume, doesn't matter. In-game voice volume, I like to put this down quite low because the voices that matter are the ultimate voices, and they're usually louder anyway. You're always going to hear those, unless it's bugged. And other voice lines, like lore-based voice lines, aren't quite as important. So I like to put that around that value. And we get into the combat mix where things get a little bit more interesting. Hit indicator is the volume for when you hit a player. I personally like to have this quite low because I'm going to know if I'm hitting a player anyway. I've got visual feedback with the hit markers, so I don't need that. I put it really, really low because then that allows my ears to be able to hear more important sounds, such as when I'm healing others or when I'm being healed. These two in particular are really, really important in my opinion. And being able to heal these to make sure that my healing is hitting is just a little bit of extra visual sound effect. That sound you're hearing as well. And also, I really, really like to have being healed up higher than the other sounds because I want to know if I'm being healed because it's hard to keep an eye on my health bar at the bottom of my screen sometimes. So that gives you a lot of important feedback. Damage volume is when you take damage. This one being louder for me is really important. I want to know when I'm getting hit. Especially sometimes you might be getting shot by like an Iron Man behind you and you don't know where you're getting shot from, but if you're hearing that sound, you know you're taking damage, which is really nice. Critical health volume. Some people don't like this. This is the sound when you go below. It will activate. Let me show you. I have this loud because I'm an old man and I like to know when I'm about to die, right? That sound there. But if you don't like that, you can turn it off. But like I say, I really like that on. Announcer volume, I put that really low. Pretty useless, to be honest. KO sounds, and that's when a teammate is KO'd. That is a very useful sound to have. It will make like a dung noise when you die. And knowing that, so that you don't always have to keep an eye on the kill feed on the right is useful. But also having the announce enemy KO sound is nice because if an ally kills one of the enemies, you're also going to know. Same thing. And this one, I can actually show you what it sounds like. I actually like the sound. Kind of satisfying, you know? So having those on is going to give you more audio feedback so that when you're focusing on whatever you are in the game, you're not going to miss out on important information. Next, we move on to keyboard settings. We'll get to controller in a minute. Mouse and sensitivity is going to come down to your own personal preference. Honestly, you're going to need to jump into the firing range and just make sure that you can do a 180 very easily and also have enough space on your desk to do an entire 360. You don't necessarily need to have much more space than that, but if you can't do a clean 360 on your mouse like this, then you need more space and your sense is probably going to need to be increased a little bit. On top of that, just have a little feel for it, right? Just go like this. Go in and just see, like, am I on target? If I am, great. It should feel natural to you. If it does not feel natural to you, just adjust it until it does. And don't worry about muscle memory or anything like that. Just adjust it based on your own personal preferences. But if you want a starting point, this is my sensitivity. I think this is the base sense, actually. So there you go. It worked for me. Okay, now we move on to controller settings. We'll get to specific crosshairs and hero-based settings in a little second. So I'm going to go through controller settings and give you some tips so that you can adjust them for yourself. Let me just grab my controller here. I'll explain what my settings are and explain why you may want to change those based on your own preferences. And this is mostly just a starting point. I've done a lot of research onto this, so I've got a lot of information to share with you. Firstly, linear curve. It's the best aim sensitivity curve type because it's the most natural All the others are not so good, and I think all controller players will probably agree with that one, or most players will. Dead zone. That is basically the area where no movement will occur when you aren't moving your stick. So if you move at the very edge like this, very small movement, dead zone will make it so you don't move at all. Now, the least dead zone you can get possible is the better, because it's going to give you more accurate, snappier movement that's as responsive to your stick movement as possible, okay? So if you can get this, do what I've done. Minimum input dead zone 0, maximum 1. And I've got it for 1 because of another setting, max dead zone sensitivity boost and horizontal max dead zone response time. So basically, the dead zone is going to kick in basically immediately, the max dead zone. And then this dead zone sensitivity boost will kick in, and that will give me extra speed to move around fast. But by using this, the response time, there's a delay before I reach my max speed. So if I just push my stick to the very left or right, it's going to take a 27 millisecond delay before I activate the super speed to basically turn around really quickly. Now, normally I can still move around like this very fine with my normal sense, but if after I pull my left and right stick, if I pull my stick to the left or right for 27 milliseconds, it will activate that super speed to allow me to turn around quickly. So if you feel like you're turning around too fast with this setting, you can adjust it by turning down the boost. If you feel like it's activating too quickly, then you can turn up the response time. If you feel like you're not able to activate this speed boost quick enough, then turn down the response time. But I think these settings personally are going to give you a nice responsive feel that's basically going to allow you to like lock onto target and track fairly easily. But when you need to like track something else, you can turn around really effectively without any difficulty, and you're basically going to be able to get some pretty easy like control even at like this distance, right? Okay, so moving on. Swap, invert. I don't really think anyone's going to be doing those. Aim assist window size. This is basically a box over the player, and when your aim goes in that box, the aim assist will kick in. So usually when you move around, you don't have any aim assist, but if you get into that window, it'll activate. Now, you could put this really high, but if you do that, you could end up having a situation where you've got multiple enemies like stacked up like this, and you're going to have a bit of difficult time aiming. So you don't want the biggest window size. My experience, a 35 window size is the best for me to get the best sort of aim assist lock on. So it's going to start slowing down around about this distance, as opposed to like over here, which I don't really like. It's going to allow me to be snappier, but when I get close to my target, I can focus my aim and have an easier time sort of lining up those shots. So you can adjust it. If you feel like you're not able to like lock onto a target or like slow down your aim close enough, then you can increase that window size. But I think the smaller, the better. Aim assist strength, the higher the better, honestly. I mean, 100's the default. Projectile heroes, aim assist ease in. So aim assist ease in, when you are in this window that we've just talked about, the ease in will determine how quickly it goes from your normal speed to the locked on sort of like slowed down speed of where aim assist is activated. You don't really want to have a high ease in setting. You don't want the highest, because that basically means it's going to like suddenly snap between having this really sort of fast movement to suddenly slowing down. And honestly, I feel like that's a bit of a throw off for me. My values are 30 for hit scan heroes, which is Punisher, Hello, Luna Snow, Black Widow, Star-Lord, Animorlock, and Psylocke. And projectile heroes is 60. Honestly, you're going to have to test these yourself and see what you feel you're comfortable with. But for me personally, I found these values to be the most comfortable. So if we're tracking a target like this, it allows me to sort of like keep track of it. But when I need to like over adjust my aim, I can leave my aim assist window fairly easily without like having to have too much difficulty of escaping, if that makes sense. Okay, so moving on, melee heroes aim assist ease in. I don't really know. I don't really know if or how that works, guys. Any melee controller players, we're going to have to give feedback on that one. Disable aim assist at max dead zone. So basically, remember, our max dead zone is very small. So I think we need to have that disabled personally. So those are the best settings. When it comes to actual sensitivity, I've gone for 1 to 5 horizontal and 50 vertical. My favorite, my vertical is quite low, I suppose. It's lower than normal, but this is something you're just going to have to test yourself. You can start with my values, although I think my vertical is a bit high, and honestly, just have a little feel, like how snappy does it feel to go between targets? Do you like it or do you not? And adjust it for your own personal preferences here. Now we're moving on to specific crosshair settings. Now, most people will say the best crosshair in Marvel Rivals is a simple green dot or a simple reticle, and I would say for the most part that's gonna be true if all you want to do is know where your aim is, right? If you're playing a hit scan hero like Hela, sure, simple, nice, but one of the biggest things that aim trainers and aim coaches always say is you don't want to look at your crosshair the whole time. And just because you have a custom crosshair, that doesn't mean you're looking at this thing. So instead, this can be used to give you extra information that you'd otherwise not have. For example, a Groot crosshair could end up looking like this. Because Groot's attacks, if you actually aim on your green dot, because of the bullet travel time, look, you're gonna miss, right? Especially as it comes back this way. Most of those shots were missing. But instead, if we aim on the outer circle, actually gonna able to hit 100% of our shots because of the way it allows us to judge where we need to lead our shots. And I've got a bunch of crosshairs for every single hero that provide different features and values. For example, this Iron Man crosshair. The line here perfectly lines up with the laser beam, so you know what areas you can attack. Like, this is really, really useful. It just provides you extra information that you may not otherwise have because all of the characters are different in this game. I'll put a link in the description to the video and also the document that provides all of the crosshairs so you can get extra information about what special crosshairs there can be in this game. Next, let's go through some hero-specific settings that are very, very important, starting with the classic one for Spider-Man. I'm going to go through these quickly and explain as efficiently as I can. You want automatic swing off with Spider-Man. It's going to allow you to actually swing exactly where you're aiming and not get random swings in directions that you don't want. The same can be said for Venom, who has a setting called easy swing. With Venom, you need to make sure easy swing is turned off, because if you don't, it's not going to give you the same sort of freedom when it comes to where and when you want to swing, and it's just going to randomly attach you onto things you don't want to be. This is for Hulk players. If you feel like you're tired of holding down the jump button the whole time, you can turn off hold to leap. This is a personal preference. I actually like to have it on, and I don't mind. But if you get tired of holding down the jump button, especially if you're a controller, this works better. So you can just tap it and then still use your abilities and whatever more easier, and you don't have to put pressure on the space bar or the jump button on controller the whole time. And then when you're ready to jump, you can press it again. It just provides less pain for your thumb. This is another personal preference. It's going to be down to how you like to play Doctor Strange, but you can actually set it to have your barrier active as soon as you click it, and then you can turn it down when you want to. Now, the combo with Doctor Strange is to attack and then put your shield up, right? Now, if you have hold to activate barrier turned off, you can basically hold down the fire button and then just do this, which actually kind of gives you faster attacks. And it's easier, it's snappier. I actually prefer this. I feel like this is a really important one with the thing that's going to allow you to combo better. So with the thing, you can set it so with hold to dash turned on, which is what I like to do, you can basically just tap the dash button and you'll immediately jump down. Or you can hold it and let go, and it gives you finer control to sort of jump in and just be like, bam, like that immediately. Or I can wait and then do it when I want to, right? So I personally find that this has better, finer control. Another setting that is going to be sort of similar for most melee heroes that I would suggest using is to go and make sure you have, the setting is called is attack range hint. When you're in range, the enemy will sort of go highlighted. So right now it's not on. So when we turn it on, and this is for most melee heroes, it will now be highlighted. So you can see they're in range and it sort of gets a highlighted color. And then you can just remove their crosshair, honestly. Like with the Thing or Iron Fist, just not having a crosshair is pretty useful because you can rely on that. Another thing with healers, all healers have a setting that is worth considering as well. It's called healing reticle feedback. Now, without that, you won't know if you're healing. I mean, obviously the health bar goes up, but a lot of people asked us about in my last video. You turn this on, and then when you heal, you get a nice little healing reticle feedback that's green. This provides a little bit of extra visuals in case you need that. There are also a lot of other specific hero settings. I would honestly just suggest to go in and check. You can just go all heroes and then change hero to whichever one you want. Just scroll down past the reticle settings and you'll see if there are any specific character-based settings in the hero section. For example, this has how to activate rocket propulsion. And it's all down to personal preference, all of the other settings. So go and have a feel for all your favorite characters and see if there's anything you'd like to change here. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, let me know, and I'll see you in the comments. Cheerio!